Radio Rahim with Eddie Hearn. As always, there's a big fight on the loom when we're having a conversation. This one, being Anthony Joshua, might be the first where I've heard that there is some trouble selling tickets and interest is dipped in Joshua, whereas sometimes in the American audience, they're kind of just now becoming aware of Joshua. Maybe his comeback might be more popular in the States than it is in the UK.
Yeah, I think everything's grossly exaggerated when you talk about the propaganda of the boxing business, but we do still have a couple of hundred tickets left. It'll be a complete 16,000 sellout at the O2 on Saturday night. It is Jermaine Franklin. It's a much bigger gate, actually, than the last time he was at the O2, which was against Dominic Brazil. But he's probably not, at the moment, at the peak of his powers in terms of his commercial star. But that can change with a great performance. He's still a massive name, as you can see by the turnout here tonight, and so forth. So I think we're in a situation now where he needs that good performance. I want the good performance, not necessarily because of I want his commercial star to rise. Personally, I want him to put in a great performance because he's made sacrifices, and I believe he's a great fighter. And I want to see him perform on Saturday night and deliver a great performance.
Do you think the boxing community, especially in the UK, I noticed that there's a lot of build when a guy's on his way up and a lot of celebration when he's at the top, but they also kind of rival in the tearing down of a guy and forcing him to humility. Yeah. You believe that might be what's happening?
I just think that's Britain, really, or the world, but more so in Britain. We champion you on the way up, but then when you get to the top and you're the man, that's when the haters come in more. I just want people to get behind him because I think he's a great bloke and I think he's a great fighter. I don't think seconds, none of us would be here without AJ. Honestly, he's completely changed the landscape of British boxing. So I want people to, I feel like, he talks about now this chapter for him is more about doing it for himself. Do you know what I mean? And I think he should do that, but I still feel like he should get the respect. I think he's got to the point where he's always chased that respect off his peers and the industry people and the fans, and then he's seen it come and go, and I think he's probably got to the point where he went, I shouldn't chase this anymore, I just need to do it for me. And so we'll see.
This is where I noticed in the press conference exactly what you're talking about. There's a bit of a different attitude in Joshua. I'm not saying better or worse, but different for sure. I don't know if it's the American influence. He's starting to sound
It's like, for a long time, he's been carrying the sport on his shoulders. He's been the poster boy, right? He's had to behave a certain way. He's got a responsibility to inspire the next generation. He's an ambassador for the sport. And when he does one thing controversial, everyone goes, that's disgusting. So I think he's got to the point where he thinks, I can't win. So I'm just going to be me. It's like the comment at the press conference, when he said, they said about the money. Yeah, and he went, I'm doing it for money. I don't believe that. Money matters, but I don't believe that. But listen, if that's what he wants to say, good. And everyone was like, wow, AJ said he's fighting for the money. He's a competitor. I believe he's fighting because he loves the sport and he wants, he doesn't need the money, but he wants to win and he wants to improve.
You think that this makes him a better fighter, mentality-wise, going into the ring, maybe throwing off all of the accolades and the statesmanship, just maybe being a bit of a gritty fighter that in his mind isn't it for the money and just what he can get?
I think he's got to be brutal. He's got to be dangerous. I said to him in Dallas, I said, you do realise that when you let your hands go, you put the fear of Christ into your opponent. When that guy stands over you and unloads combinations at that speed, it's frightening to watch. His defence is brilliant. It's improved so much. But maybe his best form of defence is attack. Because when he lets his hands go, and I just saw Jermaine Franklin down there, he's lost 24 pounds. He's got a six-pack. Yeah, he's saying he's going to knock him the fuck out. All of a sudden, this is what you get when you fight AJ. People training harder. People coming with more belief. An opportunity to completely change their life with one punch, like Andy Ruiz. Do you know what I mean? And they become more dangerous. And he's coming with a confidence as well of the White fight, which he feels he won. Right. And he feels I weren't really in shape compared to what I am now. And I didn't believe in myself back then. Now I do. And now I'm going to take him out.
Lastly on this, but is it possible that maybe all that pressure and all of the spotlight and being perfect might have been a hindrance for Joshua in the first half of his career?
Yeah, I think it was the responsibility of being like look, he's a normal young kid, right, from the estate, right? Gets in a bit of trouble, finds boxing out of nowhere. Next thing, he's knocking people out. He goes in the ABAs, he wins the ABAs. He gets a call up to England, goes in a few tournaments, goes in the European Championships, gets a medal, goes in the Worlds, like gets robbed in the final. He's in the Olympics, he wins gold in London, right? Becomes one of the biggest stars in the country. Goes out, fights, like packs arenas everywhere, like can't walk out down a street without people taking a photo, jumping on him, saying this, saying that. Wins a world heavyweight title, fills up Wembley, Millennium Stadium, Madison Square Garden. It's a lot. Do you know what I mean? It's a lot to comprehend. And people will say, oh, that's not a lot, that's a blessing. And it is a blessing. But let me tell you now, that's a hindrance as well. That's not a life he was built for. He built to fight, not built for the fame and what comes with it. The pressures of that are on another level to fighting in the ring. You know? Right. And I think like Saudi was just an explosion of that, the years of like the pressure. He said that on social media. He said that. Fury's calling him out. He's like and it's just like, oh, my head's going to explode. And that's why you saw the tears. And I like that. It was real. And I just hope now he can be free. You know, he can like just express himself in the ring because he loves to fight. But I want to see him let his hands go and take this guy out.
Now, with that said, a fighter who has no problem expressing himself and may have taken some of that spotlight and quite a bit of it from Joshua in the last year, Tyson Fury, of course. You guys tried to make that fight. It looks like the Usyk fight is certainly dead. Not only do you think Joshua has a better shot now than he may have had then with this new attitude, but is that fight makeable?
I think it's so makeable. Like I don't. Obviously, everything's focused on Saturday, but for me, big fights, everything's about timing, right? So AJ goes in there at the weekend, knocks Franklin out. Fury doesn't have a fight. AJ doesn't have a fight. The politics have evaporated. The belts, this. We know there's a deal in place that was already discussed that would make us feel like if we had time, we could push that into a good position. So I think it's a case of myself and George Ryan, just quietly, we'll work together. If there's a way, then present it to Tyson. Because I think if Tyson and AJ, they're working together on a deal, it's like, do you know what? I've heard this before. Let's just see. But if Saturday goes our way, tell me a bigger fight for Tyson Fury. Tell me a bigger fight for AJ. And it's nothing even close in terms of its size.
Where are you on Tyson's desire to make the fight? Now, a lot of people, I think rightly so, are questioning.
I think he wants money. I think he just cares about the money. And there's more money than he can ever dreamed of in that fight. So why not? You know, we've got the deal in place from last time. But I don't want to, before we know it, Saturday comes and you're in a war with Jermaine Franklin at the O2 and we're all talking about Tyson Fury. So get the job done on Saturday night and we'll see what follows.
Another fighter who is under your care that has a comeback fight, ironically not from a loss, but the kind of public scrutiny that we just discussed at a level of 12. Obviously, Conor Benn feels he's been vindicated. He's allowed to fight. I've heard Pacquiao, but now I'm hearing, Eubank Jr. is back in the mix. Of these two fights, which one would you prefer to make?
Eubank. All day long. Because it's gone from family feud to absolute pure hatred from both sides. So you get them two in front of each other, they will go at it at a press conference. Like, they'll scrap at the press conference. So the problem is, though, when there's that kind of feeling between people, it's harder to make fights. Do you know what I mean? So Eubank's now thinking, if you want me to fight Conor, fight Conor. That's the mentality. Whereas before, it was just good business. So he could turn down 2 or 3 times what he's getting to fight Liam Smith, to fight Eubank, because he's just out of spite and ego. If everyone's sensible, that's a massive fight, and I would like to see if we can get it made.
Has Eubank shown interest? Have you had a discussion?
We're in discussions with Eubank and Wasserman, and look, same thing for him. For him, biggest money fight by a mile. It's coming off a defeat. Do you know what I mean? It's a fortune compared to the Liam Smith fight. But it's just, it's hatred now. It's not business goes out the window when you hate someone. And that's what we've got to try and overcome.
Well, I don't think hatred is what we have between Benavidez and Canelo, but we do have the fans screaming for the fight. Maybe one that they thought we could have gotten already, but it's fair to think that that's something on the horizon with his performance on Saturday night. Do you think that that's the right fight that's next for Canelo after Ryder, of course?
No, well, the next fight is Bivol. We've already got, contractually, we have to go through that process of the rematch. We're already close to making that fight. Eddie Reynoso asked me a few months ago to do the Ryder and the Bivol fight. If we can't get the Bivol fight done, absolutely open. I mean, David Benavidez is also the mandatory. So we talked about the mandatory, situation. He's going to have to fight him at some stage. And trust me when I say, having worked with Canelo Alvarez and Eddie Reynoso, they will fight anybody. They don't care. And let me talk about Mexican monsters. Did you see what Canelo Alvarez did to Caleb Plant? He put him out, right? And Benavidez is a great fighter, but there's a difference between hitting him with everything and putting him out cold. And that's what Canelo did, right? So for me, I back Canelo Alvarez all day long, but I think David Benavidez is a great fighter. And after he's fought Ryder and Bivol, I would like to see that fight. And ultimately, the governing bodies will order that as well.
But I mean the right fight for Canelo. You don't think Benavidez maybe is a better matchup for him? Maybe Bivol, I know it's a rematch and all that.
But I mean, Benavidez is a much easier fight for Canelo than Bivol at 175. As good as Benavidez, and it's a great fight, but it's a lot easier fight than Bivol at 175. But you have to understand as well, it's personally for Canelo Alvarez, all he's thinking about beyond John Ryder is avenging that defeat. That's the most important thing to him in his career right now, is beating Dimitri Bivol. Because everyone's going to him, that's a bad fight for you. I don't think you should take that fight. That's the worst thing you can say to Canelo Alvarez. Do you know what I mean? Actually, Benavidez is an easier fight for Canelo than Bivol at 175. But it's personal. He has to avenge that defeat. So, and also, I know that Benavidez has a 3-fight deal, I think, with PBC. They're talking about it's already mapped out with Morrell, Charlo, but whatever. But for Canelo, it's going to be Ryder and Bivol. And then I think after that, why not David Benavidez? I think it's a great fight.
And lastly, I got to ask you about the collapse of Fury Usyk. And, we've talked about what Fury might do next if Joshua is able to make that fight great. But what does Usyk do from here?
Well, Usyk is going to go now, and I think he has to fight Dubois and Hrgovic. In what order? I think Dubois is first, but whether he's ready or not, see if he's ready to fight. But at the same time, he's lost that opportunity. He's lost it really out of pride and what he feels is right and wrong. Do you know what I mean? And maybe he's lost that out of Tyson Fury not actually wanting the fight, but who knows? But next for him, it looks like the mandatories. And this is one of the problems that AJ had with the belts.
Does Joe Joyce not figure into that equation?
Well, he's a WBO mandatory. Right. So you've got the way that it works. Joshua's just done the WBO mandatory. So it goes Daniel Dubois, Filip Hrgovic, Joe Joyce. That's probably the next 3 fights of Filip Hrgovic. It's a problem we had with the belts.
Right.
Makes you actually, and when you see AJ throw the belts away, like after the fight, that's like the frustration of, I had all these mandatories on me time after time, And now it looks like Usyk's inherited that.
And lastly, as a promoter, Eddie, and a good friend of all your fighters, I know that we've seen a Coley go elsewhere, but you've got Ben having to deal with his mentality through this whole thing, and Joshua having to deal with 2 losses through this whole thing. What's been most difficult for you and most rewarding having to deal with your fighters going through these kind of emotional times in their life and career?
You just got to be real. You just got to do the best you can. The problem with boxing is there's a lot of people in fighters' ears that really don't know what they're talking about. And fighters are trustworthy people. They'll believe anything. So if there's someone telling them this is happening and they're doing that, and that's what you're seeing with some guys, like who we've had great relationships with, we've done an amazing job for. Lawrence Okoli said, oh no, he's an unbelievable businessman. He's a great promoter, done an amazing job for me. But now he seems to have turned. Well, fucking obviously. I've done an amazing job for you. And you chose to call me out on social media with all these outrageous, names and memes and whatever you want to do. So yeah, I'm pissed off because I care about the job that I do. And I always respect fighters. Fighters don't get paid. Sometimes they wait months and they get it in drips and drabs. Ask people about how we pay fighters. We are absolutely bang on every time. And we've done a great job for Lawrence Okoli. I wish him all the best. I'm not going to start everyone slagging him off after his fight on Saturday. That's just how Lawrence fights. Saw nothing different. But he's very effective and he's very difficult to beat. Just not the most entertaining. So I wish him all the best.
It's always a pleasure to talk to you. We look forward to Joshua's comeback in Franklin's shot. Radio Rahim with Eddie Hearn.